Hi guys, once again welcome back to our channel. So let's discuss a play titled Waiting for Godot. And Samuel Beckett is the writer of this particular drama. So Samuel Beckett is an Irish-born playwright and novelist, and he immigrated from Dublin to Paris, and as a young man he was an associate and assistant of James Joyce. He usually wrote in French and translated his own works into English. He brought to the theatre and the novel an acute awareness of the absurdity of human existence. He wrote mainly in the absurd. So, what is this absurdity or the absurdism in literature? It began in Europe after the World War II, and it was influenced by the existentialist philosophy of Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. And it views life as meaningless and believe in the absence of values and Christian absolutes, and it emphasizes personal feelings over moral values, and it celebrates the breakdown of language and communication, and there is always a loss of meaning. The world is appearing as fearful and illogical. Actually, the idea of absurd was first developed in Albert Camus' essay The Myth of the Sisyphus, and later Martin Esslin used the term absurd for the first time in the theatre of the absurd. Okay, these were the characteristics or the features about absurd theatre or absurdism. Then Samuel Beckett used this particular absurdism in his play, and one of the most important and the famous play is Waiting for Godot, and it was subtitled as what? A tragic comedy in 2 acts. Actually, it contains only 2 acts, and it recalls France during the Nazi occupation, where people waited in desolate spots for others. And this issue or this particular situation is actually dealt in this play, Waiting for Godot. In this play, 2 men, Vladimir and Estrogen, they were the 2 main characters. They meet near a tree. The tree have no leaves, and they talk on various topics, and it reveals that they are waiting there for a man named Godot. Actually, they were waiting for a man named Godot, and they talk on various topics, and these topics have no connectivities, or the words or the conversation between them is meaningless. And Estrogen falls asleep in between and gets a nightmare, and he tries to tell about that nightmare to Vladimir, but Vladimir refuses to hear about that. And they talk about hanging themselves but do nothing. They were just simply sitting and waiting for Godot. And then Vladimir gives Estrogen a carrot, which turns out to be a turnip. It is an absurdism, right? Then, while they wait, 2 other men enter. First person is Pozo. Pozo is an aggressive master, and he is on his way to the market to sell his slave Lucky. Lucky is the slave of Pozo, and Lucky entertains them by dancing and thinking. And Pozo and Lucky leave. And after Pozo and Lucky leave, a boy enters, and he tells him that Godot will not come tonight, but tomorrow he will surely come. And before the boy leaves, Vladimir questions him about Godot, but he says nothing. Then Vladimir and Estrogen decide to leave, but they do not. They continue to sit in the same place and wait for Godot. And it is the ending of the first scene. The second act is happening on the next evening. The tree has sprouted leaves. The same tree which had no leaves in the first act has sprouted leaves in the second act. It's an absurdism. Then, and Vladimir and Estrogen again meet near the tree in the same place to wait for Godot. Repeating is happening, or the repeat of the same activity or the action is happening in the second act. Estrogen claims to have spent the night in a ditch where he was beaten up, but there is no apparent injury. He is continuously saying that he was beaten up, but there is no clear evidences in his body about that injuries. And in between their absurd conversation, Vladimir gives Estrogen a radish. Remember yesterday what Vladimir gives to Estrogen? Vladimir gives estrogen a carrot, which turns out to turnip. Today, estrogen got a radish from Vladimir, but the latter does not like its color. And in the second act and the second day, the same persons, Lucky and Pozo, enters again. This time, what is the difference? This time, Pozo is blind and Lucky is dumb. That is the difference. And Pozo doesn't remember meeting the two men the night before. The night before, these two persons, Lucky and Pozo, had a conversation with these men, Vladimir and estrogen. But these Lucky and Pozo doesn't remember meeting between two men night before. They leave and Vladimir and estrogen continue to wait. Shortly after, the boy enters. This boy, the same person who came yesterday, he came and said what? He tells that Godot will not be coming tonight and he will come tomorrow. He insists that he did not speak to Vladimir the previous day. After he leaves, estrogen and Vladimir decided to leave, but again they do not move, which means what? They are still continuing the same thing that they did the day before. And this particular play includes the themes of what? Uncertainty and absence of truth. There is no truth, and uncertainty is there. It is ambiguous, that it is not clear what is actually happening, and there is meaninglessness, right? These two persons, Vladimir and estrogen, are talking on various topics, but these conversations are utterly meaningless. And this meaninglessness is the peculiar theme of this play. Then, futile quest for salvation. And daily life is stagnant. It is repetitive. It is stagnant and repetitive and dismal. Isolation and inability to connect. These two persons and even Pozo and Lucky are talking to each other, but they cannot communicate with the other. That is the main problem between these characters, or it is actually a representation of the contemporary period in which people are unable to connect, or they are feeling isolated within themselves. And there is an issues of freedom and confinement, in which in the case of Lucky and Pozo, we saw that Pozo is an aggressive master and he is going to sell his slave Lucky, and there is an element of freedom and confinement, then suffering and mortality as inevitable. These are the main themes discussed in this particular drama, and this is the shortest and the simplest summary of this most famous play, Waiting for Godot, and hope you like it. Thank you.